For decades, Japan lived under one of the strictest defense identities in the world. No real arms exports, no aggressive military sales pitch, no serious role as a global weapons seller. That Japan is now gone. Because in a move that is already shaking the Pacific, Tokyo has just broken its old defense rules and opened the door to selling warships, missiles, and lethal military equipment to the world. And this is not just some bureaucratic paperwork change. This is a major geopolitical shift that could reshape the balance of power in Asia, strengthen Japan's defense industry, deepen ties with the United States and key allies, and put China on alert in a way that Tokyo has not done in decades. So the question is not whether Japan changed its policy. The real question is this: why now? What is Japan really preparing for? And how big of a military shift is this actually going to become? Because once you understand what just happened, you'll see that this is not only about exports. It is about power, deterrence, industry, and the future of the Pacific itself. Japan's new defense move is one of the most important military policy changes in recent years. For a country that spent decades presenting itself as a pacifist state, the decision to loosen export restrictions on lethal weapons is a dramatic break from the past. And for Americans watching from the other side of the Pacific, this matters more than many people realize. Why? Because Japan is not just any ally, it is one of Washington's most important security partners in Asia, a frontline player in any future Taiwan scenario, and one of the few countries with the industrial base, technological skill, and strategic location to change the military balance in the region. Now, Japan is not only building up its own defense power, it is preparing to sell that power to others. That means more warships, more missiles, more defense tech cooperation, and potentially a far more active Japanese role in the strategic architecture of the Indo-Pacific. And yes, China is watching all of it very closely. To understand how serious this is, you first need to understand what Japan used to be. For decades after World War II, Japan followed a deeply restrictive defense posture. Its constitution, political culture, and post-war identity all pushed it toward restraint. Even when Japan built advanced military systems, it was usually for self-defense, not export. The old logic was simple: Japan could arm itself, but it should not become a major weapons merchant. That logic is now being dismantled. The recent policy shift opens the door to broader exports of lethal military equipment, including warships and missiles, under conditions that would have been almost unthinkable in the past. This is not a cosmetic change. It is a strategic reset. Japan is moving from a country that mainly consumed defense technology to one that can now help shape the defense market itself. And once a country crosses that line, it is rarely just a one-time move. It changes how industry behaves. It changes how allies cooperate. It changes how rivals calculate risk. And it changes how future wars may be prepared for long before they ever start. So why would Japan make this move now? Because Japan is facing a far more dangerous regional environment than it did even a few years ago. China's military expansion has been relentless. Its naval power is growing. Its missile forces are more capable. Its pressure on Taiwan has intensified. Its ability to challenge the US-Japan alliance in a crisis is no longer theoretical. North Korea remains unpredictable and heavily armed. Russia still matters in the northern strategic picture. And across the Indo-Pacific, countries are rethinking what deterrence actually means. Japan has concluded that passive restraint is no longer enough. It wants more leverage, more industrial scale, more strategic flexibility, and more ways to strengthen alliances without depending entirely on the United States for every major capability. There is also a domestic reason. Japan's defense industry has long suffered from being too constrained by policy. That means fewer exports, smaller production runs, weaker economies of scale, and less incentive for private industry to invest aggressively in military innovation. By easing export restrictions, Tokyo is trying to give its defense sector more oxygen. In other words, this is not just a military decision, it is an industrial one. Japan wants a defense sector that can survive, expand, innovate, and compete in a much harsher world. Now let's talk about the most important part of this shift: warships. Because when people hear arms exports, they often think of rifles, ammunition, or missiles. But warships are in a different category entirely. A warship deal is not just a sale. It is a strategic relationship. It means engineering cooperation. It means maintenance partnerships. It means training. It means long-term logistical dependence. It means a shared operational ecosystem. And that is exactly why Japan's warship export push matters so much. Warships are also politically symbolic. They are visible, expensive, and high-value national assets. When Japan offers advanced vessels to countries like Australia or India, it is not simply selling equipment. It is embedding itself deeper into the naval security structure of the Indo-Pacific. That helps allies. It also helps Japan create a defense network that is less dependent on the old Japan as a passive backline ally model. And for China, this is the problem. Because every advanced Japanese warship that enters an allied fleet is another layer of pressure in the Pacific balance. More sensors, more anti-submarine capability, more missile launch capacity, more interoperability with US forces. That is not something Beijing can ignore. Warships are one piece of the story. Missiles are the other. And missiles matter even more because they directly shape deterrence. When a country like Japan sells or co-develops missile systems, it is no longer just offering platform hardware. It is influencing strike range, denial capability, air defense, and regional power projection. That is why missile exports are politically sensitive. A missile is not a tank. It is not something you casually move around a battlefield. It is a strategic weapon. And Japan's willingness to loosen restrictions around these systems tells you a lot about where its leadership thinks the security environment is heading. Japan is clearly no longer content to be just a protected island nation under the American umbrella. It wants to be a much more active deterrence state. It wants its allies to be stronger. It wants regional balance to shift. And it wants China to know that the old assumptions are disappearing. If Japan can export advanced missile-related systems, then it can help shape the military posture of partner nations in a way that was impossible before. That is a serious power move. For the United States, this is both useful and complicated. Useful because Washington has been pushing allies to carry more of the regional defense burden for years. A more capable Japan means more burden sharing, more industrial cooperation, and a stronger counterweight to China. Complicated because a more militarily assertive Japan also means Japan itself becomes a bigger strategic actor. That is usually good for deterrence, but it also means more complexity in alliance management. Still, if you are looking at this from a US perspective, the core logic is easy to understand. America wants allies that can fight, supply, build, and sustain. Japan is now moving closer to that model. And if the new policy accelerates joint development, co-production, and export-friendly defense manufacturing, then the US-Japan alliance could become much more powerful than just a traditional bilateral pact. It could become a regional defense ecosystem. That's a big deal, because ecosystems win wars before they start. Now let's talk about the reaction in Beijing. China will not see this as a normal trade policy shift. It will see it as containment. It will see it as rearms industrial alignment. It will see it as Japan stepping out of a post-war box and taking a more direct role in regional military competition. That is why Chinese officials have already reacted harshly to Japan's changing posture. From China's point of view, a more export-active Japan means more arms cooperation between US allies, more pressure near the Taiwan Strait, more anti-China maritime capacity, and more defense tech spread across Asia. And that is exactly the nightmare scenario for Beijing. China prefers to deal with fragmented, dependent, and cautious neighbors. A Japan that can export warships and missiles is the opposite of that. It is technologically advanced. It is financially strong. It is strategically aligned with the US. And it has a deep industrial base that can scale if the policy environment becomes favorable. That combination is dangerous for China. Not because Japan is about to go to war tomorrow, but because Japan is building the ability to make the region more difficult for China to dominate. And that is what deterrence is really about. There is one more major piece of this story that Americans need to pay attention to: India. Japan and India have been deepening defense cooperation for years, and now that Japan is loosening export restrictions, that relationship could move into an entirely new phase. This is especially important in naval terms. India wants stronger sea power, Japan wants stronger allies, and both countries are looking at China as the primary long-term challenge in the Indo-Pacific. That means warship cooperation, tech transfer, co-development, and possibly deeper maritime alignment are not just theoretical ideas anymore. They are becoming practical options. If Japan starts offering advanced frigates or related systems to India, that could have huge implications for the Indian Ocean and wider Indo-Pacific balance. And from Washington's point of view, that is not necessarily a bad thing. A stronger India-Japan security axis complements U.S. strategy by increasing the number of capable, aligned powers in the region. So this one policy shift in Tokyo could ripple across multiple strategic theaters at once: the Pacific, the Indian Ocean, the U.S.-Japan alliance, and China's long-term planning. So what is Japan really doing here? Japan is not simply becoming militarized in the cartoonish sense that some headlines suggest. What it is actually doing is far more important. It is rebuilding strategic autonomy. It is strengthening deterrence. It is turning the defense industry into foreign policy. And it is using exports as a tool to bind allies closer together. That is a very modern power strategy. In the 20th century, countries often projected power through armies, empires, and occupations. In the 21st century, power can also be projected through supply chains, military-industrial partnerships, and high-end weapons networks. Japan understands this, and if it succeeds, it could become one of the most important defense tech players in the Indo-Pacific, without ever abandoning its alliance with the United States. That is the real story here. Not just that Japan sold something, but that Japan may now be rebuilding the tools to shape the region for decades. Japan just broke an old rule, but in strategic terms, it may have broken something much bigger than that. It may have broken the old idea that Japan should only defend itself quietly in the background. It may have opened the door to a new era where Tokyo is not just a shield for the region, but also a supplier of that shield. Warships, missiles, defense tech, alliance power, industrial scale. That is the new Japan story. And for the United States, for India, for Australia, and especially for China, this is not a minor update. This is a shift that could shape the Pacific security order for years to come. Because once Japan starts selling the tools of modern war, the balance of power stops being theoretical. It becomes real. And that is exactly why this story matters.